Okay, here we come. Steve DeRocco, good morning.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day destroys the night.
The original rock.
Try to run, try to hide. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Yeah.
Joe Garcia, hello.
Chris Duel.
The first Taco Tuesday of 2022. We ring in New Year's with champagne. We ring in every Taco Tuesday with tacos. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Welcome in. Dave Ayler is your soundscape stylist. I forgot what both of these people look like because I haven't worked with them in a long time. I see them on the live video feed. You can see them as well as we stream live video, as we always do, on AM 1300 The Zone and Ticket 760's Facebook and Twitter pages. There's also a YouTube link to get into the live video stream. You're not only interacting with us there in real time, but a whole bunch of other people from across Texas and around the world. Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, how the heck are you?
I feel great, Chris.
Great.
I'm
Chris,
excited to be back. The alarm was on time this morning.
That's gonna take some.
I mean, you never.
you never get used to it, right? I mean, I've been doing morning radio now for
close to 6 years,
close to 6 years, and that's never
been something that
been
you're like, no, I naturally
wake up at 4 a.m.
But
nonetheless, was excited to get in the building.
Your face,
your face, well as
Dave Ayler's face.
Excited to be back. Excited to talk football. It's an exciting time.
Year for both NFL and college football, as we're just now less than a week away from crowning Alabama once again to be national champion. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Sure looks that way. And of course, we are seeing each other for the first time in 2022. How was your, I guess, because you've been gone for a while, how were your holidays and how was your New Year's celebration?
Yes, so the holidays, my last official work day got cut a little short. Thanks to a positive COVID test that I received mid-show. So felt the need to, realizing that at that moment I was COVID positive, needed to clear down the space and clear out. But it was apparently just above that negative line. So I ended up getting tested a few days later and came back negative. And they told me that you were probably positive for a lot longer prior to that first test that came back positive, which is quite scary because I didn't have any symptoms. I just kind of got tested because I had a lot of family coming in town for the holidays. I thought I had ruined Christmas with my positive test, but thanks to that negative test, things kind of worked out overall. So a good holiday. Spent mostly on the couch, taking in as much movies and television. I was forced against my will, Chris, to watch the Lord of the Rings extended versions as part of New Year's. Forced.
My goodness.
They were okay.
Okay.
But the longest one was like 4 hours and 28 minutes. That's too long for a movie, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of three.
Mm-hmm. My gosh. Who forced you? Who forced you to watch these movies?
The boyfriend.
The BF.
Have you never seen them? No, I haven't.
Okay, now see, this could be a big relationship thing. Did you, first give me the reality. You don't sound like you were that enthusiastic, but B, did you feign enthusiasm? Did you say, oh yeah, those were great. Yeah, thank you so much.
I mean, I was excited to watch them because he was excited to watch them. I think that they were pretty good movies. The storyline is great. But they were filmed, early 2000s? And, we get those big time. I know back then that was, a huge deal. Like, all those people and all of the special effects. And now we get those all the time, that it was kind of funny to watch through, my radio, television, and film lens of, seeing where things would have been improved today. But it was a great storyline. It's just really long, Chris. Those are hours I will never get back.
Yeah. Well, and before we go to Dave Ayler again, though, so you think, and again, I knew about the situation where you had to leave the day Paul Alexander was here. I didn't, it was your medical issue. I didn't tell any, obviously, so I don't know that our listeners got any inkling of that. I think Paul probably did not as well. So you believe, and the medical peeps say you probably had COVID at one point. Is that where we are on that?
Yeah, and likely the time prior to that I was on the tail end of it when I got that initial positive test.
Wow. See, because when Mike
didn't have any symptoms.
Yeah, Mike Taylor now saying on his social media and on his show yesterday, he tested positive. It is amazing. This Omicron variant is so widespread. I know so many people who have tested positive. So thank goodness you were fine. You are fine. Dave Ayler, Soundscape Stylist, can you report a positive COVID test to us this morning?
I haven't had a COVID test, so I can't say positive or negative, but I'm not feeling anything. So
that's a good thing.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Wow. My goodness.
Can't test positive if you don't test, Dave.
There you go. I like it. That's smart stuff.
That's how I roll in my whole life.
Yeah, see, we don't have any positive tests if we just don't take the test. So I've heard that before. So Dave, how were your holidays? How was your New Year's?
Holidays were good. It was pretty low key and uneventful, which was nice. Didn't get much sleep on New Year's Eve because my neighbors decided to try to blow up the entire neighborhood with fireworks. So there wasn't much sleep in there, but not too bad. I can't complain.
It's so weird. I didn't hear any fireworks in my neighborhood on New Year's Eve. The security guard here at the radio station Stone Oak said he was disappointed that there were no fireworks New Year's Eve. Shannon, any fireworks to report from your Austin abode on New Year's Eve?
Plenty.
And
I don't mind them.
And I don't mind them as much as I get it.
What I don't like is that
at 3 in the morning.
They've been dead for
2 hours, and all of a sudden someone at 3 in the
morning
is like, you know what?
Let's do some more of this.
That's
past it. That moment's come and gone.
That moment's come and gone.
Thankfully, my neighbors
save those for next year.
They started, about sundown and was kind of off and on, and then at midnight they cut loose for about 45 minutes, and then it was over.
See, I think that's called drunk people. I think that's New Year's Eve people drunk at like 3:30 going, hey, we got more fireworks. Let's go out and shoot them.
Well, that's why they started at 7 and it usually slows down right around 11 o'clock when they do another beer run, I guess. And then at midnight they cut loose.
Wow. Well, we have so much to cover, and we're still we did a lot of it yesterday on the show. Jeremy Kolak was in here, but it is still a big story. Two of the big stories are still big stories, and we'll get to them. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys, as I think I texted you, Shannon, it's that old line. They are who we thought they were. The Dallas Cowboys that lost to the Arizona Cardinals. Mike Taylor put it really well. I was out exercising yesterday, and I was listening to Mike Taylor and his show. It was like they lost by 3, but they got their butts kicked while losing by 3. Normally, when you lose by 3, you go, oh, man, what a game. Woo, that was tight. Oh, man, we barely lost. But it sure felt like the Cowboys got their butts kicked by the Arizona Cardinals, even though they still lose that game 25-22. And Shannon, I'm now that I'm looking at that 4-game win streak, and there was that graphic, you probably saw it during the Cowboys game. They put up the quarterbacks that the Cowboys faced during that 4-game win streak. And, they were the Taylor Heinekes of the world, the Mike Glennons of the world, the Jake Fromms of the world. It was really kind of fool's gold. And I hope I love the Cowboys. I'm a huge Cowboys fan. I hope they prove me wrong, but I got to be honest, I've got no confidence going into the playoffs with this inconsistent Dallas Cowboys team. And what a lot of people are saying, and it looks like if you had to pick the most likely opponent, and it could change, but the most likely opponent for the Cowboys in less than 2 weeks in the first round of the playoffs will be those same Arizona Cardinals, except they should have their 2 starting cornerbacks back, which they did not have on Sunday. And they should have running back James Conner back, who is a phenom, who wasn't there on Sunday. Shannon, your thoughts on your team, my team, America's team, the Dallas Cowboys.
I didn't feel good coming into this one. I mean, from afar, we as Cowboys fans, we enjoyed the previous weeks watching the Cardinals lose 3 in a row, right? I mean, it helped the Cowboys' chances to move up in the rankings in the NFC. But then when they lost to the Colts, that's when I felt like, okay, they're due for one. And the Cowboys are next on the schedule. A little glimmer of hope was the Cowboys in that Washington football game. A lot of people considered that a get-right game for the Cowboys, right? Everything was clicking. It looked great, peaking when you're supposed to. And as you said, I think that was a bit of fool's gold, whether it be because it was against the Washington football team or it was just the Cowboys doing that thing where they are just inconsistent year in, year out. And that makes it really hard for the playoffs. And one of the things you texted me was, one and done in the playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised
sadly
if that's the way it's going to go down. But it'll be interesting to see if they do have to take on the Cardinals again, if there are any sort of game plans. Because as you said, 25-22, you look at that, you don't think, oh wow, one team really got beat up there, but the Cowboys, no moral victories from that game on Sunday.
No, the running game, Zeke. Zeke just not getting the job done when you need him to. Oh, and a statistic, Dak at quarterback this season when the Cowboys don't rush for 100 yards, and they did not rush for 100 yards overall against Arizona. Dak at quarterback is 0-5 when the Cowboys, they have to run the football, and they have to run it well, and they have to get 100 yards somehow. Now, with that statistic, when Cooper Rush was the quarterback against the Minnesota Vikings, they rushed for under 100 and they won that game. So Dallas overall 1-5 this season when they don't rush for 100 yards. Dak at quarterback 0-5 when the Cowboys don't rush for 100 yards. And then we lose Michael Gallup to a torn ACL. Yeah. And Grant, I know we have an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver, but Michael Gallup is such a great deep threat. And, he's your number 3 wide receiver behind CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, but he's a pretty darn close number 3. And I think he'd be the featured number 1 wide receiver on a lot of teams in the National Football League. I think the Cowboys, you talk about the inconsistency of Dak Prescott and that offense. The Cowboys need all the tools they can use in the playoffs. The loss of Michael Gallup, I think, is going to hurt them down the line.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that embarrassment of riches. I mean, part of the riches is that there are so many that teams defensively have to be ready for any guy to have a big game, right? There's not that one single player, but when one guy's off, it becomes easy for the defense to shift. And Michael Gallup, I think for some, maybe not a huge loss, but I agree with you. He's a great deep threat. And again, he's just, when eyes are on him, you got other options to go to. I mean, everyone needs to be playing their part. I have Zeke on my fantasy team, so I'm hurting in more ways than one when it comes to the Cowboys not rushing well.
And, I mentioned, and I saw they put up the statistic as a graphic during the football game, the 4 quarterbacks, and it was actually more than 4 because when they played the Giants, it was actually Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm, and when they played the Giants, when they played the Washington, you had Taylor Heineke, and there was a back Jared Allen. Somebody came in as well. So it was multiple quarterbacks the Cowboys played in those 4 games that they won on the 4-game win streak after they had lost 3 of 4, after they had lost to the Broncos, after they had lost to the Raiders, after they had lost to Kansas City. And Shannon, it's a rule of thumb in the National Football League. We talk about it a lot, but typically, not always, but typically, the better quarterback in the NFL winds up prevailing in that football game. Obviously, it's a simplistic statistic, but if you look at it over time, more often than not, it seems to shine through. Kyler Murray, my God, 9-0 in that stadium. He may be coming back for the first round playoff game in that stadium. I hate to admit it, but right now, Kyler Murray is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. It hurts me to say that. I love Dak Prescott. I pull for him. I want him to be a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. But right now, Shannon, I think he's a top 10, and I think he's really close to number 10. And Kyler Murray's probably somewhere right around 5 right now in the NFL.
Yeah, I'd have to say you're right with that one. And that's hard to swallow, not just because Dak Prescott, but we all know where Kyler Murray hails from. And I think secretly deep down, folks like me don't wish him to find success at the next level, right? Like, OU, no thank you. But he's making it happen. And for whatever reason, I kind of like the guy. I don't know if it's because he's paired with Cliff Kingsbury and I kind of want to see him succeed, but what a great turnaround for this organization. I mean, think about where this organization was last offseason. Cliff Kingsbury, he's on the hot seat. Is Kyler Murray the guy? They acquire guys like J.J. Watt. They already had Hopkins. They get all these guys. And those aren't even guys that now here we are going into the playoffs. You're talking about how great Arizona's playing. J.J. Watt's not even in. DeAndre Hopkins currently out. You know, they're making it happen. I mean, this is what I wish the Cowboys were able to do. And I'm just going to say it, Chris, Hard Knocks curse. We're living through it right now. It's real.
I believe in curses. I believe in jinxes, and it might indeed be the Hard Knocks curse. And speaking of which, the Las Vegas Raiders defeated the Indianapolis Colts over the weekend. Now the Colts are not a guarantee for the playoffs. They could fall victim to the Hard Knocks curse as well. We got a lot to cover this morning, and we will. The Antonio Brown situation is just absolutely crazy. Had some big developments overnight. The Pittsburgh Steelers get a big win over the Cleveland Browns. We'll talk about that. It is in all probability Ben Roethlisberger's final game to play at Heinz Field. We've got Ben Roethlisberger audio for you a little bit later as well. Big night last night for Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks. He gets a career-high 56, but it's not enough as the Hawks still fall to the Portland Trailblazers. Speaking of hoops, Spurs in action tonight at Toronto. We'll talk Spurs. We'll talk Becky Hammon and the development that we covered it yesterday, but I want to get Shannon's thoughts on what Becky Hammon has chosen to do next in her career. And Longhorns in action. Texas Longhorns men's basketball at Kansas State tonight. Longhorns number 14 overall with their 11-2 record. We got lots to cover all morning long. The high five play of the day coming up. Sports history, sports birthdays, salty shakedown, and more. You're welcome to join us at any time on the phone lines, 800-707-9760. Lots of people joining us on the live video feed via Facebook Live, Twitter, or YouTube. You're welcome to join us there as well. Shannon Salty Sweeney is back, as is Soundscape stylist Dave Ayler. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Let's see. Foamfoot, you said, why is Tony Pollard not starting? Good question. As we know, he had the plantar fasciitis issue recently, but apparently not now. And I think they threw all that money at Zeke, and I think they just feel it needs to be a 1-2 punch, and I think they're still waiting for Zeke to do his thing, and he's just rarely, if at all, doing his thing this season. Thank you, Chris Gonzalez, for the reminder. It is coffee time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me grab my coffee. See, Sam, I talked about this yesterday. I feel strongly there is a clause in Becky Hammon's contract that if she is offered an NBA gig, she's going to take it. As I mentioned yesterday, and I use Boban as an example, Boban did not want to leave the Spurs. He loved it. He was making, I don't have the exact money here, but he was making about $5 million a year. Detroit offered him 13. He still wanted to stay, and Pop said, go get paid. Go get your money. I think Becky may know something we don't know, that Pop may be staying around another year or two. So why not go make a ton of money as a head coach in the WNBA? And then if the Spurs come calling, you take that gig. And if they don't, you keep making a ton of money in the WNBA. You're 44. Somewhere in the next 5 to 10 years, you will get an NBA offer, I would think. I'm going to heat my coffee. I'll be right back. All right. Thank you for that.
weird.
Foam foot 420. That's probably a good idea. My New Year's resolution is to try and get more sleep. I haven't done that yet, but it's a good idea. Let's see. And now we're coming back here. I'm going to say hello, and we're going to run out of time. Steve Duraco, Joe Garcia, Hector Gomez, Michael Rodriguez, Luisa Alanis, Sam Tobias, Jesse Bratton, Anthony Del Toro, Jason Paniagua, John Williams, Chris Gonzalez, Marcus Valdespino, Wes Perkins,
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with at Shannon B. Sweeney.
Welcome back on this Taco Tuesday, January 4th, the first Tuesday, the first Taco Tuesday of 2022. Lots to get to, more Dallas Cowboys reaction, more NFL reaction. We wrapped up the NFL week last night on Monday Night Football as the Pittsburgh Steelers defeated the Cleveland Browns in what is probably Ben Roethlisberger's final game as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Ben Roethlisberger, very reflective and very emotional in the post-game interview. We will bring that to you coming up as well. Final score last night, 26-14. The Browns losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers. With the win, Pittsburgh goes to 8-7-1. Browns fall to 7-9, and a lot of thinking to do in the off season for the Cleveland Browns regarding Baker Mayfield as his contract is up, and they've got to decide whether or not to pay Baker Mayfield. That'll be an interesting discussion. We will get into that. We'll get into the NBA. We'll get into college football and the national championship game, which is now 6 days away. It'll be next Monday night, January 10th. We will get into all of those things and your phone calls along the way. If you want to join us, you're always welcome. 800-707-9760. But why don't we hand out a high five? It is time for the high five play of the day. Appropriately sponsored by High Five. 2 locations in the Austin area. Everything you're looking for is at High Five. Big screen TVs. Watch all the sports you want and need and love. Great food, great drinks, food specials, drink specials, games all over the place that you can play, from bowling
on two floors that you can bowl, axe throwing, laser tag, zombie dodgeball. Fun at either of the two High Five locations in Austin. Shannon Salty Sweeney, who is most deserving of a high five on this Tuesday morning?
Well, given that we had a Pittsburgh Steelers game on last night for Monday Night Football, and they did get the victory, which brings them to an 8-7-1 record thus far on the season, it means Mike Tomlin has once again added a non-losing season, specifically non-losing because he has had a couple of 8-8 seasons throughout his time with the Steelers, but he's the first coach to do this. He's been with the Steelers for 15 years. It doesn't seem like it's been that long personally, but after last night, he became the first head coach in NFL history to have a non-losing record in each of his first 15 seasons. That's insane. I don't think he gets enough credit. Pittsburgh obviously not playing very well. Last year, they had that really hot start, and then it all just crumbled in front of them. And then this season, obviously no team can go 8-8 anymore, but because they have that tie from earlier on in the season, the worst they could do is 8-8-1, meaning, again, he will not have a losing record this year. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's done. I know he started in 2007. They won that Super Bowl in 2008, so he got it pretty early on. But this level of coaching, specifically at the NFL, and a place we know, I mean, we call it a coaching carousel for a reason, right? Black Monday is coming. There will be heads that roll, and I don't think Mike Tomlin will ever. I think he's one of those guys, probably like Bill Belichick, who will get to say for himself when he's done coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm looking, Shannon, right now at the Pittsburgh Steelers all-time head coaching records, and in particular, the last three. When I was a kid growing up watching Tom Landry and the Cowboys go up against the Steelers, their head coach was Chuck Noll. Chuck Noll coached from 1969 to 1991. Since Chuck Noll, they've only had two head coaches, Bill Cowher, who was pretty darn good, just got inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and now Mike Tomlin. And I'm looking at the regular season records of those coaches. Obviously, Chuck Noll got those 4 Super Bowls. Bill Cowher gets one, I do believe. Mike Tomlin got one with Ben Roethlisberger over the Arizona Cardinals. But winning and Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher are legendary. But check this out. Winning percentage, Chuck Noll, 566. Bill Cowher, 623, better than Chuck Noll. Mike Tomlin, 650. Mike Tomlin, a better winning percentage than Bill Cowher and Chuck Noll. Like you just said, Shannon, you don't think he gets the credit he deserves. He wins with more frequency than Bill Cowher or Chuck Noll, and both of those dudes are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think without a doubt, we're talking about a guy in Mike Tomlin who is destined for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I think when the Steelers hired him, he was very young. He was something like 32 when they hired him. So totally agree. High five to Mike Tomlin. And as a Cowboys fan, Shannon, it drives me crazy. The level of consistency that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had dating back to Chuck Noll. That would be like saying the Cowboys have had that level of consistency dating back to Tom Landry, and we know they have not. We know that it has been, and it's speaking of Pittsburgh, last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl 30 against Bill Cowher and the Pittsburgh Steelers in January of 1996. This is January of 2022. So whenever I hear about greatness and consistency as a Cowboys fan, I compare it to the Dallas Cowboys. And oh my God, is Mike Tomlin better than any coach we've had since Jimmy Johnson?
Yeah, continuing looking at what he's done since 2007, they've been first in the AFC North 7 times, which of course got them into the playoffs, and then second twice, which also led them into the playoffs. They've never been fourth in the AFC North since his time. So they've never even been dead last. They've finished third a few times, but I mean, if you were to ask me if I would have taken Mike Tomlin over who we've had in the carousel of Cowboys coaches. I would love to have had Mike Tomlin. If it meant half of the time that we've had him, we get a shot at the playoffs.
And it's interesting because I paid closer attention to it being a USC alum, but there was that moment, and it was Carson Palmer a few months ago during this season who went on the Dan Patrick show and threw out Mike Tomlin's name out there as one of the coaches that USC was looking at. As we all know, Lincoln Riley ultimately took that gig, but Mike Tomlin very quickly the next day at his press conference essentially said, "Why would I leave? It's like, why would I go somewhere else? I've got a great organization. They back their coach. They win a lot." So Mike Tomlin, and it as Cowboys coaches has discovered, and as you see all over the place, you talk about Black Monday, Shannon, and the coaching turnover in the NFL, and just ask Urban Meyer how difficult it is to coach in the National Football League. To be this consistent this many years and not have a losing record is a testament to Mike Tomlin, but B and A, 1A and 1B, the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. They're a great organization, a great culture. They're about winning. Winning matters. They're doing something very, very right. And you look at the Dallas Cowboys, and here you and I already this morning lamenting the inconsistency of the Dallas Cowboys. And throughout the Jerry Jones era, ever since Jimmy Johnson left, and then Barry Switzer goes and wins that one more Super Bowl against the Pittsburgh Steelers with Jimmy Johnson's players, part of the problem in Dallas has been inconsistency. And it's been, I've heard so many times that it's been kind of a country club mentality there. For a while, Bill Parcells came in and tried to instill discipline, and it began to work. And then he left. But I have no confidence that Mike McCarthy is the answer at head coach for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, especially when you keep getting word that guys like Quinn and Moore keep getting asked to be interviewed for other positions, right? I mean, what are they gonna? They need at least one of those guys. I feel like, and I'd love to be able to keep both of them. And if that meant getting rid of McCarthy, moving one of them up to that head coaching gig, then so be it. If you ask me now, since we are on Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, I do want to ask you this real quick, because obviously last night a huge game for Ben Roethlisberger, playing at Heinz Field for what everyone assumes to be the final time in a Steelers uniform. He's been there since 2004, so he's been there throughout Tomlin's entire tenure. How much of Tomlin's success do you think rides on Big Ben, and how much do you think he gets a ton of rope after, because who knows what's going to happen? They could have a guy step in and they could continue their winning ways, their winning record ways year in and year out, or it could be almost a complete overhaul and kind of what other teams have done, where they are searching for that next guy, and you do have those off seasons. Does Tomlin get the benefit of the doubt, considering he had Big Ben his entire time?
It's a great question. I think with that Steeler organization, he does. Obviously, as we've learned over the years, and the Cowboys learned the hard way after Troy Aikman left, you got to have a very, very good quarterback to succeed in the National Football League. And all of these coaches who have succeeded in a big way had the quarterback who they're tied to. Jimmy Johnson was tied to Troy Aikman. Bill Walsh was tied to Joe Montana. Bill Belichick was tied to Tom Brady. So yes, I mean, anytime you bring up a great coach, Tom Landry, Roger Staubach, I mean, anytime you bring up a great coach in the National Football League, that great coach won't be able to be great unless he has a great quarterback. So, but I think you also demonstrate that you are a great coach when you do have that great quarterback. So I have a feeling that the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, being of sound management and very level-headed and about winning, I think they get it. I think they realize they've got a gem in Mike Tomlin, And so now the quest becomes find the next breakthrough Super Bowl quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that's their mission. And again, you look at consistent franchises, Shannon, I don't put it past the Pittsburgh Steelers to go out and find that guy, whoever he is.
You think it's in the draft, or do you think it's someone who's already in the league?
History tells us it's in the draft. Again, most of these people we've mentioned were homegrown quarterbacks. That's why it looked like, I brought up Urban Meyer. That's why that looked like such a good situation for Urban Meyer with Trevor Lawrence. If Urban Meyer didn't have the personality that he demonstrated, I mean, that's how you do it. I mean, Jimmy Johnson coming in, there were two quarterbacks there, Steve Walsh and Troy Aikman, and obviously Jimmy pretty quickly made the calculus that Troy Aikman was going to be the future of the Dallas Cowboys. So, if that quarterback's out there in the NFL, probably somebody's not going to let him go, unless, and I sure don't think it's Baker Mayfield, but you look at guys, Joe Burrow all of a sudden coming into his own in Cincinnati, but yet he's from Ohio. He's probably not going to want to leave the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's going to be interesting to see how they make that move. Now, Jason Paniagua bringing up on the live video feed, Shannon, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers? We've talked about Aaron Rodgers seeming unhappy at times in Green Bay, although if they win a Super Bowl this year, that could make him a lot happier. But I think the outlier in my position that you would find that quarterback through the draft might be a guy like Aaron Rodgers if he would make that leap.
Yeah, or I'd even want to throw in Russell Wilson in there, because we know about his current situation. Except just it's kind of funny to think that they go from quite literally Big Ben to little Russell. I mean, what an adjustment that would need to be made for them. But yeah, it's going to be super interesting. And again, the narrative that'll surround Mike Tomlin these next few years, depending on how they do with who they end up getting, that's going to be entertaining to watch as well.
And, you bring up Russell Wilson as a possibility, and word is there will be a divorce between Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, the head coach of the Seahawks. But he's got so many miles on him. He's a smaller quarterback and now has so many miles on him. I brought that up yesterday, and I'd like to bring that up with you here in a little bit in the show. Kyler Murray, as mercurial as he is, the great athlete that he is, he's smallish, and he's a running quarterback. He's going to take hits. We know what that means in the National Football League, what can happen to a player like that. I don't think Kyler Murray can sustain this type of play over a 12, 15-year NFL career. Right now, he's phenomenal, and he probably will be the first 5 years into the league. But for Kyler Murray to sustain that, I think it would be very, very difficult in the National Football League as we know it. Coming up, we will hear the post-game comments of Ben Roethlisberger. Let's talk more Dallas Cowboys, the salty shakedown coming up in the 7 o'clock hour as well. We'll talk Longhorn football and Longhorn basketball just after 8 o'clock. NBA, Spurs, and more. Don't go anywhere. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler making the show go. It's the Chris Duel Show. Clint Proctor, welcome in. Leo Zambrano, welcome. Let's see. I may need to heat my coffee. It's getting lukewarm. Ramon Rodriguez Martinez, Happy New Year. Clint Proctor, Happy New Year. Clint, when is your is it a triathlon you're training for? I know it's 2022. Pickett, that's a good idea, Marcus. And all the more fitting that Kenny Pickett went to Pittsburgh. All right, let's see here. Ironman, Texas, April 23rd, the Woodlands. All right, Clint. Outstanding, sir. And Clint, when you do that, in the same way Robert Browning is going to climb Mount Fuji and plant a Spurs flag and give us props on this show. We ought to get you on the show right before you run this thing on April 23rd. I think it's cool. I just love, somebody who goes after a big athletic goal like that and goes for it and achieves it. It's like Haas Holding with the wrestling. I think it's cool. I love stories like that, and I think listeners of the show would love to hear about your journey. Let's see what Wes says here. Then I'm going to go get some coffee. Winning culture and discipline matter. Talent without discipline doesn't mean anything. Amen. I keep saying that's the biggest issue for the Cowboys. Wes, totally agree. Bill Parcells brought discipline. In that final season, Parcells was not liking T.O. You had, he said about Romo, don't anoint him yet. I often wonder if that Romo fumble didn't happen. And I think Parcells was at the end of his rope with Jerry. But if Romo doesn't fumble that snap in Seattle and the Cowboys win that game and, maybe go a little deeper, that was a talented Cowboys team led by Bill Parcells. You just wonder. Then again, I think Jerry would have screwed it up. I mean, you've looked at what Jerry's done since Parcells left. So Jerry probably would have screwed it up. John Williams, I am not trained for that. I ran the rock and roll marathon, all 26.2 in 1995 and had a horrible, in the aftermath of it, I had a pinched nerve in my neck that went all the way down my left arm. That was lasted for 4 months. It was like intense pain for 4 months. I gave up distance running after that because it's linked to the neck and the spine. And I used to run marathons in the 80s, and I just said, that's it. I'm done. So probably not. I mean, I probably could, but at this point, I do a lot. I'm more interested in low impact. Running on pavement's not a good idea for me. Beth Settle. Good morning, Beth Settle. Let's see. Foamfoot 420. I'm going to have nightmares again about Tony Romo dropping that damn ball in Seattle. The other thing that occurs to me about that is that began the narrative and the reality and the self-fulfilling prophecy of Tony Romo choking in the big moments. Tony Romo throwing the key interception, the key pick six. I'll never forget, there was a game against Washington, last game of the season. Winner wins the division, losers out of the playoffs. Cowboys got the ball down 4, and Romo throws a pass to the sideline like an out pattern that was intercepted by the Washington cornerback. And I was watching the highlights that night, and Don Harris on News 4 shows the highlights. And when Romo throws the pick, Don Harris said it's in his DNA. So in other words, it's in Romo's DNA to choke in the big moment. That all began that night in Seattle. If that doesn't happen, if they win that game, if they go deep, if they go to a Super Bowl, this built over time. And I got to believe even for Romo, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. I remember that game against the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning, where and the Broncos, I think, were undefeated at the time. And the Cowboys were matching. Romo was matching Peyton Manning touchdown for touchdown for touchdown for touchdown. And then in the fourth quarter, I even remember thinking, when is Romo going to screw this up? When is Romo going to screw this up? And then late in the fourth quarter, he threw to a running back who had a strange name. What was his name? It'll come to me. But he threw into triple coverage and he threw a pick. And the Broncos won that game. And it was just so I among other things, I go back to that Seattle game. Would Parcells have stayed if that doesn't happen? And would Romo's career have been remarkably different? And would he have gotten to a Super Bowl? Here we go.
Now, Chris Duel.
Praise be to the football gods on high. Among them, one Thomas Wade Landry. And as we know, A new football god ascends into football heaven, and his name, John Madden. We talked about John Madden extensively last week. We talked about him a lot yesterday after the coverage over the weekend. We talked also about Dan Reeves, who was a Tom Landry protege in the 1971-72 season. Dan Reeves was a running back for the Dallas Cowboys. He was also the holder on extra points for kicker Mike Clark in the Cowboys' first ever Super Bowl victory in Super Bowl VI. It was Tom Landry who made Dan Reeves a player coach that led to Reeves being an assistant coach for 6 years on that Landry staff. And then he went on to be a coach of the Denver Broncos and the New York Giants and the Atlanta Falcons. Welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, our soundscape stylist. Shannon, I was telling Dave during the break, and we'll hear from Ben Roethlisberger in a moment. Here you and I are talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you ask the great question, will Mike Tomlin have, a long leash moving forward without Ben Roethlisberger if things don't go well? And we're speculating on the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Dave Ayler is our resident Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely we'll get his thoughts on the team in the future and Tomlin and Big Ben and all that in a moment. But I got to ask you, Shannon, because you were not here, you were on vacation. A few big developments, obviously. Sadly, the death of John Madden, it sent shockwaves through the football world. And, obviously you're a gamer. We know you talked about it. You play Madden. You're an avid player of that game. He had the three-pronged career, a great coach, winning a Super Bowl with the Oakland Raiders, a breakthrough revolutionary football analyst, and then the Madden video game. So you had the documentary coming out on Christmas Day that he watched with his family. And then ironically, and sadly, he passes away 3 days later on December 28th. Your thoughts on just the entire John Madden passing and the subsequent reaction that we experienced that even went through Sunday's NFL football action?
Yeah, you mentioned the video games. I mean, that's really where my knowledge of him stems from, because I wasn't around when he was coaching and then when he was, doing his broadcasting. So I really know him as Madden, right? And that's, like, to me, that's the guy who you reference when you pick plays. I mean, I always go with Madden's suggestion whenever I play those games. I'm not looking around to pick something else. I'm not smarter than Coach Madden. I mean,
Coach Madden.
For goodness
sake, the game and the series is named after him. It'll be interesting. I love video games, and it'll be interesting to see
what they do for that next one.
They
reference the
Madden curse, right? When it comes to the athletes on the cover this year, we had Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady.
It'll be interesting if
they switch it up in his honor, because he's obviously a huge loss to fans of football, and I think fans of sport, because everyone. Because of all the things you mentioned Madden, they have a connection somehow. For people like me, born in the 90s, I mean,
we are still very much connected
to NFL through Madden and through those video games.
Yeah, I mean, even a young player like Lamar Jackson, saying how much he grew up playing the Madden game and wanted to be Michael Vick, and it influenced the way he plays the game of football. All right, we were talking about last night's Monday Night Football game at Pittsburgh at Heinz Field. Steelers beat the Cleveland Browns 26-14. We made Mike Tomlin the recipient of our high five with that 8-7-1 record. Once again, there will be no losing record for Mike Tomlin. Get a win on this weekend on Sunday, and it'll be a winning record at 9-7-1. It was in all probability the final game for quarterback Ben Roethlisberger at home at Heinz Field. And we will hear from Dave Ayler, who's a big Pittsburgh Steeler fan, on the other side of this. But an emotional interview after the win on national television for Ben Roethlisberger. Here's a guy, I think, guaranteed to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, probably on the first ballot. He's a guy everybody knows his career was not without controversy. He had the alleged incident with the young lady in a bar where she alleges he did inappropriate things in a restroom. I think that really stained his career, certainly in my eyes, but his impact on the Pittsburgh Steelers and his success as a quarterback in the National Football League cannot be questioned in the aftermath of and moments after what was probably his final game ever at home at Heinz Field in front of that Pittsburgh Steeler crowd. Here were the post-game comments and the post-game interview of Ben Roethlisberger last night.
Well, Ben, as far as last games at home go, how do you think this one went?
You know what? It's funny because probably not the way you wanted it other than the win. And that's all that really matters. That's kind of been the story of my career. Not always pretty, but we find a way. And man, did our defense step up tonight, and the guys were just so much fun to be out here. These are the best fans in sports and the best place to play. So,
what was going through your mind when Najee kind of sealed it and took that last one to the house?
You know, I didn't think I was going to take the field again, but it's the best play in football when you're an offensive player to take a knee. And so I'm glad I got to do it one last time.
One last time. How do you leave this place, Ben?
I don't know. With a win. I'm just so thankful for the fans, my family, obviously, and the good Lord has blessed me in so many ways. We still got another game. I'll be excited, ready to go for that, but this is just an awesome place.
All week, you've been saying you've got to focus. You let yourself feel it, but you got to focus. At what point did you just let it all sink in?
Probably about now. Just the end of it, having a chance to go back out there, just, I don't know, I'm at a loss for words. I'm just so thankful for these fans and this place. There's no place like it.
We know what you have meant to Pittsburgh. But what has this city, this venue, Heinz Field, what has it meant to you?
Everything. Like I said, I'm so thankful and blessed to be able to call this place home for almost half my life. In front of these fans and seeing all the signs and all the jerseys and and just you know, to come out here, I don't know, I've been so blessed and I'm just so thankful.
Congratulations on a wonderful career. And it ain't over yet. It ain't over yet, Ben.
Ben Roethlisberger, after the game, the post-game televised interview during Monday Night Football last night, and you heard the audio, but if you see the video that accompanies that audio, clearly tears in Ben Roethlisberger's eyes. You probably heard a little bit of the emotion there in his comments. Let's go to Mr. Dave Ayler, who is a lifelong Pittsburgh Steelers fan. As you listen and watch Ben Roethlisberger there in his final interview there on the field, his final game at Heinz Field, your thoughts on him, your thoughts on his career, your thoughts on the future at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I definitely first ballot Hall of Famer. I think that's a given. As far as moving on, you know, it's time to move on. He's done. You know, he can't even play backup anymore. He needs to retire. Even if he's thinking about going someplace, play somewhere else, he shouldn't. He just needs to retire, make it a career. 5 years, he'll be in the Hall of Fame. As far as moving on from him, the Steelers seem to find, when it comes to quarterbacks, they always find like a diamond at some school that nobody thinks of. Like Terry Bradshaw came out of Louisiana Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's not known for a hotbed for football quarterbacks. Roethlisberger came from Miami of Ohio. That's not a hotbed for quarterbacks. This draft coming up is going to be pretty light in quarterbacks. So hopefully they can pick up somebody to keep them until they can draft somebody. Like Aaron Rodgers would be nice.
Yeah. Now, Shannon asked a great question about Mike Tomlin. And obviously, throughout Mike Tomlin's tenure that has been very successful over 15 years, Ben Roethlisberger has been there. Mike Tomlin moving forward, let's say they don't find their quarterback for a few years. We as Cowboys fans, after Troy Aikman went through years of hell until Tony Romo showed up, how much slack do you think Mike Tomlin gets? Do you think he's there no matter what, even if they do go through some tough years coming up?
It's going to be some tough years. I think, the ownership of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, is one of the best in the league. and I'm trying not to be just because it's just a homer, but I think it's, the Rooney family is pretty amazing. I think they'll give him a long leash. I think the only drawback I have on Tomlin is that, he's had great records, been to the playoffs a lot, no losing seasons in 15 years or whatever it's been.
Yep.
And he's only got one ring. That's my one drawback on him. We'll see how he can draft now. Can he bring in somebody and develop a quarterback? Well, we're going to have to find that out.
Shannon, I find that interesting. Obviously he went to another Super Bowl where Aaron Rodgers won that one at AT&T Stadium with Mike McCarthy as the head coach, believe it or not. But I got to believe, Shannon, hearing from Dave Ayler, who's a Steelers fan, he probably speaks for a lot of Steeler fans who say, hey, man, 15 years, only one ring. That's not good enough if you're going to be a Pittsburgh Steelers head coach.
Yeah, I think that is kind
of a glaring note when you do look
at his career as a whole. But I think in comparison to the rest of the league, the consistency, again, we gave him the high five for being able to go 15 seasons and never have a losing season. His win percentage, I think he's like 63%. He's won the AFC North 7 times. He's placed second and gotten into the playoffs 2 more times. So 9 out of his 15 years, he's made it to the playoffs. As a Cowboys fan, I would love that. Obviously, like Dave said, he only got to that one Super Bowl to win, and that was very early on. But only one team can win it every year, and you got to get a shot by getting into the playoffs. And that consistency, I think, especially with the high turnover rate we see so often today, I'm okay with kind of his status as the Steelers head coach, and again, give him the benefit of the doubt going forward with whoever that new quarterback is going to be to think he'll continue to be successful with that franchise.
I mean, you think about it, 32 teams in the NFL. Great point, Shannon. Only one team can win it. And then the other thing about Tomlin in the last 15 years and only one ring. Oh, by the way, that the bulk of that was during the Brady-Belichick era. And last year it was still during the Brady era, and Brady gets another one in Tampa Bay. You got to wonder if Brady and Belichick did not happen. I sense that there might have been another one or two perhaps for Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So,
yeah,
all right.
I'm just being spoiled.
That's a point too.
I was spoiled during the Chuck Noll era, so Chuck Noll had 4.
Jason Garcia saying Bill Cowher had the same record in 15 years. Just one for Bill Cowher also, correct?
Yes, and you got to remember Cordell Stewart was the quarterback there for 6 or 7 years when Cowher was there, and he was a big bust.
Yeah. All right. Now, I do want to move on to another story. We talked about it yesterday. It happened over the weekend, but Shannon, I certainly want to get your thoughts, and Dave, if you've got thoughts as well. Becky Hammon, San Antonio Spurs assistant coach, took a lucrative deal with the Las Vegas Aces, so lucrative it will make her the highest paid coach in the WNBA and WNBA history. Something that struck me, I saw so many people reacting on social media saying, well, now we know Becky won't be the next coach of the Spurs after Greg Popovich leaves, to which I say, really? How do you know that? I remember, Shannon, famously, your buddy, now a Dallas Maverick, Boban Marjanovic, who as a rookie fell in love with Pop and San Antonio and being a Spur, and the Detroit Pistons offered him a boatload of money. And Boban even said to Pop, I'd like to stay in San Antonio. That's the kind of guy Boban is. And Pop said, you get out, go get your money, go get paid. This is generational wealth for your family. Go get paid. I wonder, Shannon, first of all, your thoughts on the move for Becky Hammon. But secondly, I think if I'm negotiating Becky Hammon's contract with the Las Vegas Aces, given her trajectory in the NBA, her history in the NBA, her likelihood to be the first female coach in the NBA, I would certainly have a clause in there that says, hey, she'll sign for 5 years with the Las Vegas Aces, but if she gets offered an NBA gig, she has the right to go get that NBA gig. I don't know that that's in the contract, but I can't imagine that it's not. Your thoughts on the new home after this Spurs season, the Las Vegas Aces, for one Becky Hammon?
The Las Vegas Aces, formerly of the San Antonio area, correct?
Yes, Silver Stars and Stars, yes.
Connection there. Honestly, I still don't know how I feel about it. Like, go get your money. I get that. But part of me, and I don't know if this is like the female side of, we were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you to be the first female head coach in the NBA. And to your point, it doesn't mean that it still isn't, that it isn't going to happen. It doesn't mean that she can't be offered and decide to turn away from the Aces. But then, and even though we see coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, even players these days at all levels do that, right? They commit to one place, and then a year or two later, they get a better offer, and they just kind of end up leaving. And a lot of people usually criticize them for that. I think if Becky does that, the criticism will be tenfold, not warranted. But I just, it's not the path that I think so many of us, including myself, were kind of envisioning. That it feels a little out of left field. But get your money, prove yourself worthy of being a head coach at this level, at a professional level. And I think the offer for her to be an NBA head coach will come. But again, it depends. What if she has great success with this team and this program, and they're able to win some championships? I mean, what if she feels like, okay, this is her home, this is where she's meant to be? I think that question will always kind of linger of like, oh, what would have been had she just stayed with Pop on that bench maybe one more season, or just given it one more off season to be interviewed by other NBA teams.
Yeah, and again, I still feel like, maybe I think a couple of things. Number one, maybe she learned, perhaps directly from Pop, and Pop turned 73 later this month, by the way, on January 28th. Maybe Pop directly said to her, I think I'm going to go another 2 years, to which, and I know if they had the discussion, Pop would say, as he did to Boban, go get your money. And the other thing is, maybe Becky has learned, if indeed she is where she is as a Spurs assistant right now, maybe she's learned everything there is to learn as a Spurs assistant coach. And even if she will be considered whenever Pop rides off into the sunset, a year from now, 2 years from now, to go now and be the head coach of the Las Vegas Aces. I brought this up yesterday, Shannon. There's a reason why governors tend to get elected president a lot more frequently than congressmen, because governors are CEOs. Governors are running state governments. So they've got that CEO experience that a president is going to need. Maybe Becky, especially the money they want to pay her, which is more than any other coach in WNBA history, now to be the CEO, and apparently she's going to be coach and general manager of the Las Vegas Aces. They're saying, hey, run this team. We have complete faith in you. Maybe that's what's going on here. And she can still, 2 years from now or whenever, a year, maybe at the end of this season, become the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, if that's what happened. And then the other thing that might be going on, Shannon, and I have no knowledge of this, and this is wild speculation on my part, but this is what we do in the morning. We wildly speculate with some informed knowledge of just what we've seen in sports over the years. Maybe Becky wasn't hearing anything she liked yet from the Spurs, and maybe she thought, well, I'll go take this, and it might even be a possibility now in January, and Becky is agreed and the Spurs agree she's going to continue to coach on the Spurs bench throughout this season. It might be the kind of a situation where the Spurs themselves and Pop, where if Pop wasn't sure, maybe Pop in January, in February, in March, regular season is supposed to end in mid-April. Maybe the Spurs change their minds. Maybe Pop, who always thought, well, I've got Becky here on the bench. I think whenever I step aside, we'll make history with Becky, and she's the most qualified candidate. Maybe it nudges Pop and the Spurs, maybe, to make a move quicker than they might have made, since Becky is going to go take this gig.
Yeah, don't let your future go out that door. too soon. And again, like the WNBA season, I know that she's head coach and I should say GM, it's 36 game season, right? It's basically a summer league in the WNBA. And I don't know how much time she has in the off season, but could she continue to dabble somehow in the NBA during that off season in some form to keep those ties to that league? It's going to be really interesting, but I'm happy for her. Get that money, get that bread.
Yeah. And I think, you look at the female college coaches and the WN. I mean, a lot of us can't name, you and I, Shannon and Dave, we talk sports every morning on the radio. Other than Bill Lame Beer, who was and is currently the head coach of the Las Vegas Aces, I can't name WNBA coaches. I'm not proud of this, but I'm not that well versed in the WNBA. When the Stars were here, when the Silver Stars were here, I paid a lot more attention because we had a home team. But I think Becky Hammon suddenly, as a coach, becomes the face of the WNBA, at least among coaches and possibly even among players. She's that big of a deal. And I think we could argue now in the universe of women's college basketball coaches plus WNBA coaches, she probably quickly becomes the biggest female coach in the game. Do you think that's I'm outlandish to say that?
No, I think that's right on. At least for that initial moment.
She'll have to prove herself with wins
and victories and
championships. But for the time, absolutely.
See, I would say in all of women's basketball right now, to me, Kim Mulkey is like the biggest deal right now. Kim Mulkey, who we know went from Baylor to LSU. She's like a national phenomenon. As you mentioned, she gives great interviews. She's insanely successful. In women's pro and college basketball, I would say it's Kim Mulkey. I got a feeling it now quickly becomes Becky Hammon. We shall see. All right, coming up, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. Have you had withdrawals? It's been like 2 or 3 weeks. It seems like 2 or 3 years since we've had the Salty Shakedown. It is coming right up, along with sports history, sports birthdays, and more. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, not only will we talk Texas Longhorn football and basketball, but a big development for the Oklahoma Sooners and maybe their biggest player entering the transfer portal, which anything that affects the Oklahoma Sooners affects the Texas Longhorns and certainly all of the Big 12, if not the rest of college football. We will get into that. Lots of ground to cover between now and 9 o'clock. You can join us on the live video feed or dial us up at 800-707-9760. Dave Ayler making the show go. She's Shannon, Salty Sweeney. I'm Chris. It's the Chris Duel Show. Yep, there's Michael Cooper. You're right, John. Now that you mention him, now I remember him. But how much noise is Michael Cooper making as that head coach? A little, but not that much. Okay, I'm out of coffee, so I can't make a coffee run. But I do need ice for my iced tea. Let me check my Twitter here first. All right. I am going to grab Thank you, Foamfoot 420. I know. It's totally empty. And the sad thing is this means I drank all this coffee. Empty. That is a vast, deep strato tanker of no more coffee. But I do have plenty more, even though this one's empty. Gold Peak unsweetened iced tea. Just to prove it, I will be guzzling Gold Peak unsweetened iced tea for the rest of the show. Unsweetened black tea, even though it looks brown. Woo! 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 Back in a sec. Woo!
No Taylor at 8:05.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I should have made sure you had that. Thank you for reminding me. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, the Charlie Parker motor oil coffee scares me. Here we go.
Chris Duel Show.
Glory Days by the boss, Bruce Springsteen. This was a glory day, a glory night for a certain football team coming up on this day in sports history. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, back as Soundscape stylist. The three of us haven't worked together since 2004, so it's great to be back. It's been a while. So coming up in a moment, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. Lots to talk about in the world of sports, including that story from the Oklahoma Sooners where their arguably best player is exploring other options, things changing in the world of college sports. We'll get into all of that coming up. But first, we do this every morning at this time, just before the Salty Shakedown. We bring you today's sports birthdays and this day in sports history. January 4th, 1976, AFC Championship game. Three Rivers Stadium, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Steelers beat the Oakland Raiders 16-10 to advance to Super Bowl 10. Who will they face? We find out later in the day at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum as the wild card Dallas Cowboys, coming off Rodgers' Hail Mary pass to Drew Pearson the week before, they decimate the 12-2 heavily favored Los Angeles Rams 37-7. Roger to Preston Pearson on that diving catch that became a part of the NFL Today coverage. Pretty cool. On this day in 1986, at the Naval Academy, a basketball player named David Robinson set the record for most block shots in an NCAA game with 14. That David Robinson guy wound up being pretty good. On this day in the year 2000, a day after accepting the head coaching position at the New York Jets, Bill Belichick resigns and signs to become the head coach of the New England Patriots. Talk about one of the smartest moves ever. Belichick signs to be the coach of the Jets and then goes, I think I'll go be the coach of the Patriots. Wow. Bill, good move. And speaking of good moves, on this night in 2006, a night that would scar me as a USC Trojan for the rest of my life. It was the 8th BCS National Championship game at the Rose Bowl. Number 2 Texas defeats number 1 USC 41-38. Vince Young establishes himself as Superman. And Shannon, to this day, I have flashbacks and people still send me the video. This is it tonight, January 4th, 2006. Maybe the greatest night in Texas Longhorn football. What do you think?
I remember it like it was just 16 years ago, Chris, which I know for people like me, that's almost like it was yesterday, right? And we still hold on to it as such. I'm ready for another one. I'm ready to talk about a different one going forward.
You can be like Dave Ayler. You can say it's been 16 years and you just gave us one national championship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how
many does Alabama have?
A lot.
We have so many.
And they've only had one coach.
We have so little.
Yeah.
And UT's had a lot more coaches than.
True.
Damn it, Dave.
Damn it, Dave.
True. On the losing sideline that day, Steve Sarkisian, little did he know that someday he would be the head coach of the Texas Longhorns. We'll see if Sark can bring it back. That's your sports history. Congratulations, Texas Longhorns. 16 years ago tonight. That memory can now get a driver's license. Very, very cool. That's your sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day, January 4th, 1925, College Football Hall of Fame quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner in 1947, won the national championship 3 times in 43, 46, and 47 for Notre Dame, Johnny Lujack. I love the name. Great name for a quarterback. Johnny Lujack wound up playing with the Chicago Bears. He was born in Connellsville, Pennsylvania. Another NFL great was born on this day in 1930. Pro Football Hall of Fame coach Don Shula. Before he became the Dolphins head coach, he was coach of the Baltimore Colts. Of course, he coached the Dolphins to that legendary 17-0 season in the 1972-73 season. Don Shula was born in Grand River, Ohio. He passed away in 2020. Born on this day in 1935, world heavyweight boxing champion from 1956 to 1959. Then again, from 1960 to 1962, he won Olympic gold in 1952. Floyd Patterson. He was born in Waco, North Carolina. I didn't know there was a Waco, North Carolina. I guess so. Floyd Patterson passed away in 2006. Finally, born on this day in 1994, a guy who hopes to play in the NFL playoffs, Heisman Trophy winner from Alabama, Tennessee Titan Derrick Henry, born on this day in 1994, born in Yulee, Florida. Happy birthday, Derrick Henry, Floyd Patterson, Don Shula, and Johnny Lujack. Those are your sports birthdays. That's your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, pole assassins, and monkeys, here it is, your first of the year, Salty Shakedown.
Oh, how I missed this moment, Chris. Glad to be back with you here for Salty Shakedown, kicking things off with someone who is no stranger to kicking things around. One Miss Carly Lloyd, who, of course, retired from international play. Her soccer career has come to an end. She did so with winning FIFA's best player multiple times, has a couple of world championships as part of U.S. women's national team, as well as some gold from the Olympics. Miss Carly Lloyd, she has offended some people in the past, sir, whether it be some of her actions on the field or just things that she's posted online. But that's not crazy. I mean, lots of people have negative things to say when they disagree with someone. But recently, given that it was the holidays, and I guess she's up in that New Jersey area where the weather has not been great as of late, she came home to find 5 packages delivered specifically by FedEx sitting on her front porch steps that were not covered. And she noted that they were disgusting and gross and messed up, and that why FedEx did not put them under the covered part of her patio near her door, why they couldn't make that happen. People went after her, Chris. She then came on Twitter and said goodbye. People thought she was quitting. Well, she didn't. She came back later and said, I would have quit Twitter 10 years ago if you folks thought you could run me off so easily. And then yesterday, sir, we have an update because apparently she got connected with FedEx thanks to this viral tweet of hers, and they responded. And so she has now thanked FedEx via Twitter for their great customer service. Now, Chris, I don't care that she was unhappy about the package situation. I would have been unhappy if my packages were rained on or whatever. But I'm curious about your experience with packages, given it's always a hot topic of, okay, UPS delivers this way, Amazon delivers this way, FedEx delivers this way. There's the videos of different services laying them down nicely, tucking them in, or just drop kicking them onto your doorstep, or chunking them from the seat of their vehicle. Have you ever been through a poor package delivery situation?
Nothing horrific. Where I live, Amazon sometimes gets it wrong. And I like Amazon Prime because sometimes they'll send you a photo of your package at the front door. And it's sometimes wound up at another building. And it's like, wow, that's not my front door. So then I go looking for it. But nothing egregious, actually. So aggravating occasionally, but nothing horrible.
Yeah. The ones I hate are when you have to sign for them. And you know they're coming. Specifically, the station recently our wonderful company sent me a awesome kit to allow me to do the show from home, should I so please. And they said, hey, you got to sign for it. There's nice equipment in here. You got to sign for it. They got to know it's you. I'm like, okay. They send me the tracking information, and then it says, today's the day. Your window of opportunity is between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. So I'm like, all right, I'm homebound today. No errands to run. No, I've got to be at home for this package to arrive. Chris, it did not arrive that day.
Oh.
So I felt like I wasted a day. And then that really gave me kind of a sour thoughts about it. Luckily, I had some family in town, so they were actually at the door when it did finally decide to arrive. But I'm just, that's my issue with packages. If you're going to tell me you've got to be home for us to sign this, we are delivering it today. And by the way, it's like a 6-hour window, so clear your schedule. If I do that, I want that package to be delivered during that time period. I get upset when it is. All right, Chris, we're moving on to a guy that you know very well, DeMar DeRozan, formerly a Spur, now with the Bulls, who are number 1 in the East with a record of 25-10. They recently won over the Orlando Magic, except DeMar DeRozan not happy with his free throw performance. He just shot 7 from 13 from the line, and they're free, right? So especially at that level, you expect guys to make a few more than that. He says usually he spends a lot of time after games shooting free throws. He typically does sets of 10. He tries to make all 10. If he misses, he'll do more. He usually shoots 250 thereabouts. But because of the weird NBA schedule with some things getting shifted and how tight the schedule has been for the Bulls, he says he hasn't gotten to do it. So he made it a point after this recent win and shooting 7 from 13 from the line. He shot 250 post-game free throws from the court as they were changing the court out to flip over the arena for hockey later that week. Chris, how much do you miss this guy this season? Because he's on fire. He's doing all the right things.
Miss him. Yeah, I miss him, but I'm happy for him. He and twice over the weekend on back-to-back nights, he hit game-winning walk-off three-point shots for the Bulls. I miss him, but he's a very good guy. Obviously, the Spurs wanted to commit to a youth movement, and I think it'll all work out for all parties involved. But yeah, DeMar DeRozan having arguably, even looking at his years in Toronto, arguably his best season as a pro. Good for him. It's good to see.
I just love that he takes the time to shoot free throws and he holds himself accountable. You don't see a lot of guys, especially the ones that are at that level, have that kind of notoriety, really holding themselves accountable. Free throws are free, and if you're not making them, you need to work on them. He chooses to do so, and he does so after a game in which you said, he hit incredible shots to help the Bulls get that victory over the Magic. All right, finally today we move to football. You alluded to it a little earlier in the show. Antonio Brown, he's been busy, sir, since taking off his uniform and strutting through the Jets end zone during the Bucs' most recent game. He's yet to be officially cut from the team, but as we know, Bruce Arians has said he's no longer part of the team. Apparently, after he left the game, he asked for an escort, a police escort to the airport. He was denied. Someone then caught a photo of him waiting for what they thought was an Uber. I guess it was a personal driver because he's been in the New York area ever since that game. He actually appeared courtside at the Nets and Grizzlies game last night. This driver that he has been hanging out with them, posting videos on his Instagram with Antonio Brown. And one of those videos, Antonio Brown mentioned something for his Netflix documentary. So that might be something that we're getting soon. I don't know if it'll be good. Will I watch it? Sure, because he's kind of like a train wreck. It's hard to look away. But this man, on top of sitting courtside and hanging around in LA, because he couldn't get that flight to or the ride to the airport. So I guess he just decided, well, if I can't get an escort, I'm not going to the airport at all. He also dropped a song yesterday, only available on Apple Music, called Pit Not the Palace, where he claims to be from the pit, not the palace. Not sure exactly what that means, but the graphic that goes with it, half of his face is in football gear, the other half he is wearing a crown and dressed as a king. Sir, he keeps reaching these levels and doing these things where you're like, what else? What hasn't he done? This has to be it. This has to be the end of the story. And yet here he is, still making headlines. He seems to be officially out of the league, and yet he's still the guy that everyone is talking about. This is our first show back together since this incident has occurred. Your thoughts on that moment when he did what he did on Sunday during that Jets game, and then how he's continuing to live out his life right now, because he's been busy.
He's got clearly, as you know, Shannon, a pattern of bad behavior. He's a problem child. I'm concerned for him in that, we've seen CTE as an issue. I have no way of knowing if he's got some issues there, but my God, I can't imagine after all of this. Belichick gave up on him. Bruce Arians gave up on him. Mike Tomlin gave up on him. John Gruden, when we used to like John Gruden, gave up on him. I can't imagine, Shannon, another team is going to put up with this. And I think it's a cry for help. He's an attention hog and the guy has like 5 kids by multiple mothers that he's responsible for. Eventually, this guy's money is going to run out, and I got a bad feeling he's going to come to a very sad end somehow.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I'm just sitting here thinking of all of these things he's continuing to do when he's just been kicked out of the league. He's been spending all that money, right? We talked recently about the private chef he had that he owed like $10,000 to. He's probably got a new private chef. He spends all this money. What's he going to do when that money runs out? I know Tom Brady had a lot to do with him being on that Bucs team. And had a lot to do with him even being on that Patriots team, and that he believed in him as a player. I'm hoping that Tom still believes in him as a person, because even though Antonio Brown still doesn't seem to see what a lot of other people see, it doesn't seem to be heading towards a great direction, especially now that he's out of the league once again. There it is, today's Salty Shakedown.
Outstanding Salty Shakedown. And I'd like to talk more about Antonio Brown on the other side. Apparently, he had some benchmarks to get a $1 million bonus that were very doable in the final 2 games of the season. So, I mean, he's really hurt himself in a big way here, but God knows what's going on in his head. We'll talk about that. We'll talk Texas Longhorns on this anniversary of the Longhorns' perhaps biggest win ever, that national championship game 16 years ago against USC. Oklahoma may be losing its greatest player. Lots to cover in the 8 o'clock hour on the Chris Duel Show. All right. One more hour. Armando Salinas, Brady still believes in him, wants him to get help. Good morning from Kentucky with the Kentucky Wildcats profile pic. Armando. Okay, I am going to grab some more ice for my Gold Peak iced tea. Back in a sec. Yeah, where is Kentucky? Let me take a look at the standings. Whoops, what the heck happened there?
First game against Brooklyn on January 9th, 11 a.m.
Yeah, Brian sent me something on that. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
They don't want to go up against the NFL again?
I have no idea. I don't know what's going on there. Kentucky number 16 in the AP, number 13 in the coaches poll.
Hey, Chris, here's something we could get into not today. Super Cup says that all records broken into the expansion season should have an asterisk by it.
Interesting. Okay.
We're in a new age of football here. We're playing 17 games of football a year. A lot of the stuff that happened before that, those records hold a different weight, being that they were played only plus 16.
That's a good one.
That's on ESPN.
Okay. Are you here the rest of the week? Do we know?
I think so, but I don't know.
Okay.
Right now, I'm assuming I'm here the rest of the week.
Okay. Thanks. Armando misses Texas. I'm sure Texas misses you as well, Armando. Yeah, Anthony Huerta, I know you posted that a ways back, but it's a good point. Becky found a way into the Olympics after Team USA wasn't an option. I think she can find a way back as a head coach in the NBA. Yeah, I just think faced with the choice of a year or two as sitting on the Spurs bench as an assistant versus making a ton of money to be a head coach in the WNBA, probably made economic sense and might even make strategic sense. Thank you, Armando. Got the Beatles with the cap. I got the John Lennon Imagine shirt. So I'm representing the Fab Four.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You're gonna destroy the night. Night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide. You to the other side.
Now, Chris Duel.
It is Tuesday, January 4th, a Taco Tuesday, your first Taco Tuesday of 2022. Lots that we have covered, lots that we will cover. Of course, the Dallas Cowboys and their issues, sifting through the aftermath of that 25-22 loss to the Arizona Cardinals. We talked Antonio Brown. We'll talk a little more Antonio Brown in a moment. We will get into not only the Texas Longhorns on the 16th anniversary of their landmark national championship victory over the USC Trojans in the national championship game at the Rose Bowl, where Vince Young solidified himself as Superman. But we'll also get into the Oklahoma Sooners and their perhaps losing their best player. I did want to talk about this as well, Shannon. You know, we talk about Antonio Brown and the problems that he had on and off the football field when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took on the New York Jets on Sunday. The Houston Rockets last night, it was Saturday's game over the weekend, had problems with not one but two players when they were at Philadelphia. Kevin Porter Jr. left the game in the middle of the game after getting into an altercation with assistant coach and former Spurs head coach John Lucas, who apparently challenged Porter at halftime when the Rockets gave up 47 points in the quarter. Apparently, Kevin Porter threw something at his assistant coach, John Lucas, and left the game. And Christian Wood, who's been their highest scoring player, was late to the game, so he was held out of the starting lineup. Apparently was pouting and not a good team player the rest of the game. My God, the Houston Rockets, who are not having the best of seasons themselves, lots of problems, lots of personnel problems, lots of issues, both with Kevin Porter Jr. and Christian Wood, apparently, for the Houston Rockets. Not a pretty sight going on in Houston.
It's embarrassing. That's embarrassing for those players, their families, and that organization. These are supposed to be grown men, professional athletes, and this is how they're behaving. And I think the Houston Rockets are doing, don't reward them. Don't just give them their job back because they're great at putting the ball in the hoop. Make an example out of them. We just talked about DeMar DeRozan, and he shoots 7 of 13 from the line, and they still get a win. And he spends hours after the game shooting 250 plus free throws to get himself better. And then you have the Rockets. What a dysfunctional group that is right now.
And John Lucas, for those who know his biography. John Lucas has been around forever and has been associated with the Houston Rockets, both as a player and now for many, many years as an assistant coach. And John Lucas pretty famously had a drug addiction problem that he overcame decades ago. And now he especially works with professional athletes who have substance abuse problems. By all accounts, John Lucas, a very good guy. And for Kevin Porter Jr. to want to throw something, and did reportedly throw something at John Lucas in the locker room because John Lucas was confronting him and the team for a bad performance, giving up 47 points in the second quarter to the Philadelphia 76ers. I think now, obviously, Shannon, Antonio Brown is the extreme, but I think a lot of players, and especially NBA players, because so many of these players have been the man ever since they were of middle school age, and they played often like AAU basketball, and they often played for these mega schools. If they're Americans, I know there's a lot of European players, but I don't think you see this as much from international players. There's a sense of entitlement. There's a huge ego, I think, that most NBA players have that you don't see as frequently in the NFL or Major League Baseball or soccer or hockey. It's just, I just think we see it manifesting itself here with Houston in a big way with Kevin Porter Jr. and Christian Wood. And it's just sad. And again, I've said this over the years, Shannon, it just makes me happy to be a San Antonio Spurs fan, because the Spurs have, for the most part, and I know Kawhi Leonard had some issues, the Spurs, for the most part, have done their due diligence to select character guys and team players and players who don't behave like this for the most part. So it's just, I feel bad for John Lucas, who doesn't deserve this. I feel bad for Houston Rockets fans and for sports fans in the city of Houston. But anyway, there's the latest in the saga of the Houston Rockets. I do want to get to this. It was a huge story yesterday, Shannon. I know it's in your show notes for the Oklahoma Sooners. Caleb Williams, who, beat out Spencer Rattler, and Spencer Rattler has since gone into the transfer portal and gone elsewhere. Caleb Williams, their quarterback, who seems to be the quarterback of the future for the Oklahoma Sooners, he entered the transfer portal, had an extensive post yesterday on Twitter and social media saying he's going to look at his options, and he says among those options is a return to Oklahoma. But this can't, and then it was interesting, and I'm sure you saw it, Shannon. Then Oklahoma, the coach and the athletic director, then put out this statement, which it looked like a pretty fear-based statement going, oh, we will do everything we can to see to it that Caleb Williams will get the best possible opportunity and education and name, image, and likeness opportunities here at the University of Oklahoma. I just think this is a big sign of the times in college sports now, when an athlete is a big deal, as Caleb Williams is, and you saw in this case Lincoln Riley go to USC. It's interesting to see Caleb Williams exploring his options, and I've seen some analysts since this story broke said, a part of the big deal here is name, image, and likeness. This is almost like a player holding out and saying, all right, what are you going to give me? And I'm going to go explore what other schools are going to give me. And for Caleb Williams to legally talk to those other schools, he had to enter the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think yesterday initially there was shock for me of him entering, but then you said think of it, and he even mentioned all of the changes. Obviously, the big one being Lincoln Riley no longer there, but this season, I mean, he was not the starter going into the season. He was behind Spencer Rattler, the guy who was supposed to lead them to the college football playoffs, the guy that was supposed to be a finalist for the Heisman. He ends up taking over for him when the fans, as well as the rightfully so at that point, we're saying he's not good enough anymore, putting Caleb Williams. But Caleb Williams turned around and started getting booed by fans when he wasn't performing up to their standard. And that's got to be a lot to go through of a fan base who is so used to winning. I mean, OU in their statement mentioned their final paragraph. In fact, this program, which has won more games than any other since 1999, is blessed with talented individuals up and down the roster and on its coaching staff. We stand ready to build on the momentum of last year's 11 wins and bowl victory and continue OU's long-standing championship tradition. You know, he wants to play for a winning program, obviously for visibility, but he wants to play for a program. He doesn't want to go through a year like he did last year where he could be in one game and out the next because the big money guys of Oklahoma or the fans in the stands are calling for whoever is next in line, because as we know the history of Oklahoma, they have no problem acquiring great quarterbacks to go play at that school. And there's a lot of guys that are also in that transfer portal, and there's a lot of unknown with a new coaching staff coming in. It's interesting that when he made this decision, as you said, you know, the only way he can talk to other schools is to be in that transfer portal, and he is keeping Oklahoma as an option. But when it comes to NIL, I mean, just looking at his bio, you mentioned earlier Vince Young as Superman. Well, Caleb Williams' Twitter bio is Caleb, air quotes, Superman Williams. So he is definitely looking to make his mark when he, you know, decides that this is where I'm going to, you know, play my college career and finish things out. I personally, I kind of see him going back to OU. I just don't really know where else he would get that visibility, where else he would, you know, go to a team that is probably going to be ranked in a really nice spot to begin the season, giving him that opportunity to lead them to a potential Final Four, another potential Big 12 championship. But certainly, you know, a big move. Again, the whole NIL, the whole transfer portal, and now it all kind of coming together into one. It is wild, sir. Wild.
Well, and it makes you wonder, and it may be a long shot, but or may not be. You know, Lincoln Riley goes to USC. USC currently has a guy who was a true freshman quarterback last year, Jackson Dart. You've got to wonder what kind of a relationship Caleb Williams established with Lincoln Riley shortly after Lincoln Riley left OU to go to USC. Caleb Williams pretty quickly on social media talked about, I'm a Sooner, I'm going to remain a Sooner. But you've got to wonder now, and you talk about name, image, and likeness, and where might you, if he were comparing Norman, Oklahoma and Los Angeles, California as USC's quarterback, perhaps, I don't know, might be a calculus there. You don't know how much Lincoln Riley might still have some influence over Caleb Williams. And now that he's in the transfer portal, might Lincoln Riley have a conversation or two with Caleb Williams? But the other thing, moving that aside, Shannon, that occurs to me, if Caleb Williams leaves and goes somewhere else, you just look at this Oklahoma program. And yes, you're right. They have no problem going out and recruiting quarterbacks. But part of the reason for that was Lincoln Riley for a number of years. He has left. If Caleb Williams now leaves, I have a feeling from a PR standpoint and from a luster standpoint, I mean, those would be two huge blows. You lose your face of the program coach, Lincoln Riley, who was known as a quarterback whisperer, and then you lose, you know, we can argue whether or not he's their best player. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But certainly I would say he is currently their most high-profile player. If Caleb Williams chooses to leave the Oklahoma Sooners, man, that is an ugly 1-2 punch that they would have received from Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams.
Well, and I saw an interesting take of, you know, Casey Thompson from the University of Texas in that transfer portal. His father played for Oklahoma, so he grew up a Sooner fan. People were starting to throw his name as maybe the next guy should Caleb Williams leave. I just, as a Sooner fan, I think that'd be a tough pill to swallow, especially given the performance Casey had down the stretch. Obviously, he had an injury to his throwing hand, but it's wild. And then I saw rumors Caleb Williams, maybe Jimbo Fisher goes after him, because look at what A&M is doing and look at what they're able to do with their NIL deals and already being in the SEC. You know, we are in uncharted territory here.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
I just love sitting back and watching it. I love it. We need an HBO Hard Knocks on this. The transfer.
Well, and you know, and I'm looking at Caleb Williams' bio, and you know, his high school was called they listed Gonzaga College in Washington D.C., which is a strange name for a high school. But apparently, coming out of the Washington D.C. area, I wonder. You mentioned Casey Thompson having the roots, the Oklahoma roots, even though he wound up going to Texas and is now in the transfer portal and looking elsewhere. You just wonder what, and obviously NIL is a big consideration, and clearly Oklahoma now kind of scurrying and doing everything they can to demonstrate to him that he'll have a big NIL future at Oklahoma. And I think he would one way or the other. But then the other thing you bring up, other coaches of universities that could be on the cusp of the college football playoff, is that how much of a consideration is that for if you're a player the caliber of a Caleb Williams? I think you want to win a Heisman. You want to, more than anything else, improve your your NFL draft status so you can go to the NFL. NIL now, you want to get paid. If Quinn Ewers made $1 million for not really playing at all at Ohio State, now he's back at Texas. I mean, this is such a multi-pronged decision now. And I mean, if you want to do it all as a quarterback in college football, yes, you want to win the Heisman. Yes, you want to be a top, if not a number one overall draft pick into the NFL. And yes, you would like to go to the college football playoff and win a national championship. So, I mean, you enter the transfer portal right now if you're Caleb Williams, and you see if anybody can offer you all of those things. And can anybody offer it in a bigger way than the Oklahoma Sooners can?
Do you think he's one of the bigger names in the transfer portal because he's good, or because it's Oklahoma and they've already gone through so much drama? Because to me, he goes in and I'm not like, oh my gosh, someone's got to snatch him up. Because he's the next guy.
I think a little bit of both. I mean, I think he looked very, very good at quarterback for Oklahoma. And, and as you mentioned, what a turn of events coming out of nowhere. As we've discussed, Spencer Rattler going into the season was the Heisman Trophy favorite and the favorite to be the number one overall draft pick before the season began. We talked about maybe the Houston Texans getting Spencer Rattler, and my goodness, how quickly all of that changed. So I think a little bit of both. I think the whole Oklahoma thing elevates his status, but I think he also played very, very well at a very good program that has been a quarterback and a Heisman Trophy factory for the last several years. So I think it's a little bit of both, but you don't seem that impressed with him.
I just think it's hard to commit to him being the guy given the kind of back and forth Oklahoma had this year and the kind of season they had this year. And because they had 11 wins on the season, but let's recall that a lot of those wins were close. Were wins that people thought they really shouldn't have had. And how much credit do you give that to Caleb Williams or discredit at the same time? So I don't know. It's definitely interesting where he lands, especially considering what's already gone on at Oklahoma. They're kind of in this holding pattern now of, okay, do we make an effort to go get somebody else, or do we really believe that if we put all of our focus on Caleb, he's going to come back to us?
Yeah, and if you make an effort to go get somebody else, and that gets back to Caleb Williams, does he then decide? Yeah, so what? Yeah, they are in a bit of a pickle. And as I mentioned earlier, Shannon, all of this affects the Texas Longhorns, because if the Longhorns, who clearly did not have the season they were hoping for, or we were hoping for, but if they can get back to the level that they want to get back to, which is competing for a Big 12 championship, seemingly year in, year out, your obstacle, the team in your way to win the Big 12 championship is Oklahoma. And if they lose Caleb Williams, and if they go into the season with a new coach and with a big question mark at quarterback, I believe that benefits the Texas Longhorns. That's good news for Texas.
I think it does too. I won't let myself think like that come the start of the season, just because it is college football, and part of the beauty is that you just never know. But yes, to make it about us in Texas, I think it's all good news.
Meanwhile, the Texas Longhorns, the men's basketball team, number 14 in the country as we speak. Their next game will be against Kansas State. That is tomorrow. No, that is tonight. That is tonight at Kansas State. That's a 6:00 start. Currently, Texas 11-2 overall, 1-0 with one game in the Big 12. Longhorns, both men and women, looking very, very good in college basketball right now.
Yeah, the men so far holding up their end of the bargain. They opened a Big 12 play on Saturday against West Virginia at home. Now, interestingly enough, the head coach for West Virginia made a comment about how playing at Texas is very easy because you can hear conversations happening because there's not a lot of fans there, right? People just don't go to the Irwin Center. So it is disappointing that the season started so strong in that aspect of Chris Beard rallying people to get there. I know right now students still on winter break, and obviously an 11 o'clock tip on New Year's Day is going to be a hard one to get people to attend. But hopefully now that they are in Big 12 play, obviously Big 12, Kansas not ranked. We won't play a ranked team until we hit Iowa State on the 15th. But some great teams coming to town. They've obviously got that matchup against Tennessee, number 18. Texas Tech is going to be huge, obviously, with Chris Beard being the coach at Texas now. So I think there's a lot of great games to come for this program, and hopefully they continue to keep winning because Texas, I think, as a school needs this right now. Just I think when one sport is doing really well, I think it helps lift up all of the other sports around, especially, we talk about NIL, we talk about the transfer portal. Kids don't want to go to just a one-dimensional school, especially when you're talking about NIL. They want to go places where you say a school's name and they can think of multiple athletes, multiple stars. They want that big-time program, and so that helps to have every other program around them, men's basketball, women's basketball, playing so well.
Meanwhile, the number one team in the country in men's college basketball is in Waco. The Baylor Bears. I am just astounded, Shannon, that Baylor can have this level of success in college football. They had a very, very good year in men's and women's basketball. We mentioned Kim Mulkey. She goes to LSU, but the Baylor Bears men's basketball team, as we speak, number one in the country. They are 13-0. And every time I see this level of success at Baylor in Waco, you talk about young athletes wanting to go to a program with great success and a great brand, and I even think a great city like Austin. If Baylor is managing to attract athletes and have a very good football program and have a very good number one in the country right now men's basketball program and a very good women's basketball program, if you can pull that off at Baylor in Waco, I got to believe Texas needs to pull that off, given their brand and given their city of Austin, Texas.
Yeah. Chris, Waco is trying. Okay, they got Magnolia with the HGTV couple. They're trying their best to update that area to entice people to come. And again, we are still so new into this age of NIL and transfer portal. And that was the huge thing when NIL happened, right? People were like, well, kids are only going to go to those big time schools because that's where the money is going to be. It'll take some time for us to see if that's really where the trend goes. But as we know, winning changes everything, and kids want to go to winning programs because that's where you get to be on TV. That is where your face is seen. And Baylor continuing to play well in those sports they won the championship last year, men's basketball. It makes perfect sense that they're ranked number one right now. If they continue to keep winning, I think they'll continue to keep getting great players.
Lots more to cover as we roll forward. I do want to talk about just some more ugliness on Twitter, directed what a shocker, at a woman, at a female sports broadcaster by some Neanderthal dude. In this case, it was ESPN analyst Mina Kimes on the receiving end, and she put it out there for everyone to read. We will talk about that, talk a little bit more NFL, including Mac Jones and his favorite Christmas gift, and the Eagles fans, none too happy about the Washington football team. Lots more to cover in the NFL and more. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler making the show go. Thanks for hanging out with us till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Let's see here. John Williams says, does the NIL hurt smaller schools and universities? I think absolutely it does. All right.
You gotta when's after the show today?
I'm highly motivated to go home with the double coming up against the Spurs, but whatever you need. Okay, cool. Thanks. Oh, let's see here. So that was... Here we come.
We're back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Join in by dialing 1-800-707-9760.
Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler making the show go. And this morning, the Washington football team on their Twitter account post a 45-second video. And their words on their tweet is, "The wait is almost over. Mark your calendars, 2/2/22." And their page on Twitter now, their photo says 2/2/22, their profile pic as well, and it says we launch on 2/2/22 in the video, among other things. Shannon Salty Sweeney, the wait apparently will end less than a month from today, February 2nd. 2022. And by the looks of this video, the fact that they say we will launch on 2/2/2022, I wonder, some of the talk was that they would keep the name Washington Football Team. Based on the video and by the hoopla, it doesn't sound that way to me.
No, it seems like they've had this now for 2 years. They've been the Washington Football Team. They've sold enough of that merch. They're ready to switch things over and start what I think they would hope to be a new era for this, what is currently the Washington Football Team. Now, in this 45-second video, it's a lot of hype. It's a lot of history. They do end it with a couple of current players and showing their faces. 2/22 is when we'll get this announcement, which, as you said, is just a month away. Are you feeling like they're going to achieve with whatever this announcement is as far as their new name and logo? Or do you envision disappointment for Washington fans and maybe some NFL fans going forward? Because it's been hard personally to say Washington Football Team.
Yeah.
I'm ready for something else.
I agree. And I know there was talk, and who knows, they may still do it. There was talk of just keeping Washington Football Team. I think it's weird. I don't think it's in line with the rest of the NFL. I hope they come up with a name. I've said many times, Shannon, I think they solved the problem. It's never come up among them as the top candidates, but I think they should call themselves the Washington Americans, and I think they could pay homage to Native Americans with that name, and yet also cite the fact that they are the nation's capital. If any team in the NFL called themselves the Americans, Washington would have, it would seem to me, the best case to do that. There was a team in the World Football League back in the 1970s called the Birmingham Americans. So the name has been used before, but we've heard some of the names that they may use, and I wonder, and I know the Cleveland Indians changed their name, and not everybody was happy with it. I think there will probably be a mixed bag and a little bit of disappointment, but it'll be. And what I'm curious about now, they've got all this hype about 2/2/2022. Yeah. Can they keep it under wraps? It's so hard to keep a secret, especially in the information age. Can they keep it quiet until it actually happens? I doubt it, but it'll be interesting to see if there is a leak before we get to that date.
Yeah, because then once there's a leak, there'll be unauthorized merch that spreads like wildfire across the internet. I'm curious about the date, if they chose it because, that looks really cool, 2/2/22, or if it's because it's a Wednesday, so it's not like a huge, hump day, whatever, but it is the weekend of what is typically the Pro Bowl. I don't know, are they still having that or this year, given the COVID situation that's going on? But that is, kind of a dead week in the NFL and the week before Super Bowl weekend. So I guess they're going to soak it up to have the focus on them as much as they can, since they're probably not going to be around playing football at that point.
And as we know, it's a franchise. Yeah. It's a franchise that has had controversy and issues and bad press and bad stories, and a lackluster season this year for the Washington Football Team. So we will see if they can make a splash and if they can get a lot of people on board. Shannon, I did, and again, you have a perspective here that certainly I don't, or Dave doesn't, and I don't think a man does. You are a woman working in the sports business, and you have told me as well. You've been on the receiving end of ugly tweets from people. ESPN analyst Mina Kimes shared some guy, his name was Charles Brown, and it generated a lot of Charlie Brown memes, but a guy criticizing her for the very fact that she was a woman talking sports at ESPN. Your thoughts about that story?
Yeah, well, I don't know if Charles has a job, because he sent this email, which is pretty lengthy, at 1:19 in the afternoon. So I'm not really sure what he's doing with himself. It's I always find these kinds of responses funny, because he's obviously watching Mina, and he's been watching enough to decide that he's not a fan, and it's totally fine to not be a fan of someone, man or woman, when they're on, doing what you and I do or what Mina does. but for the reasons he's giving. I mean, specifically, and I'll read the note he sent her now. He says, Mina, stop embarrassing yourself and pretending you know anything about male sports. The only reason you're at the 4-letter network is due to affirmative action. Jeff Saturday must privately feel so emasculated having to pretend to have an intellectual back and forth about professional football with someone wearing lipstick and high heels. Viewers see you as a bad joke that they're forced into enduring. Have some dignity and do something you are suited for, and give poor Jeff. And then it kind of tails off there, but I'm assuming give poor Jeff a break. I don't know, but the fact that, he points to the lipstick and the high heels. What, sir? 1:19 in the afternoon. What are you doing with your life, Charles?
Obsessing over somebody who has a job that probably that dude wants.
Yeah, and obviously he feels like he's taking up for a lot of other people. And I'm sure in some responses people went back and said, you don't speak for us, Charles. It's unfortunate that this is stuff that, women do go through quite frequently, and even men go through it too. I mean, it's not hard to email you or I or anyone on the radio, at least within the iHeart network, and emails do come through sometimes. But it happens, and it's just part of the gig. Brush it off.
Well, and there's, obviously, and you're right, there's a lot of like Twitter and social media hate no matter what. But clearly you listen to the tone. It is such a misogynistic perspective and a point of view, and the guy is clearly has issues with just the fact that she's a woman and shouldn't be able to talk with Jeff Saturday and talk football, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I like what Mina Kimes did is, I mean, put it out there, shine a light on it, let people see it. And oh, by the way, since it's radio, this was the guy who sent it. It was a profile pic that was generic. Absolutely. So clear, probably not even this dude's real identity.
Right. Well, and also I love that she posted the picture of it, and her Twitter quote for the picture was, "Sir, this is a Wendy's." Acting like I'm not working where you think I'm working. And then people did come after her saying, well, why are you posting this? Why are you trying to cancel culture? Why are you trying to cancel this man? And her point was, she understands, you don't always want to amplify these kinds of things, but she's getting the point across of like, this is one of many that she receives, right? It happens quite frequently. This is one of many. This is one of the more recent ones. So good on you, Mina. I enjoy you when I see you on the 4-letter network, because she does appear on quite a few shows these days. I'm like, oh, I've seen her.
And it's tough enough for a woman to break through in sports, and it has been for years. And it is obviously in broadcasting, it's a male-dominated medium, becoming less that way all the time. But to do it, and then to just have to put up with just ugly, and and you're right, men and women. I've gotten ugly, tweets and messages over the years, and I realized early on it goes with the territory. You do anything in a public arena, there's a certain percentage of people who are just going to want to, throw dirt at you and be mean, and that's okay. The mean tweets that people read on Kimmel and stuff are funny and have become part of the pop culture. But when it's clear that an idiot dude is just got issues and got a problem with a woman just by virtue of the fact that she is a woman, clearly, and that's why I'm glad she puts it out there, because it shines a light on the idiot a little bit, and B, I think it's an example, and I think she said something like this as well, for other women who are either doing this or aspiring to do this. It's like letting them know when you do get ridiculous tweets in this case, or messages like this, it's common. It happens, and you just, you brush it off your shoulder and you move on.
Yep. I think she did the right thing with this one, and obviously started a bigger conversation. And I think doing something like this, maybe that stops one person from sending something a female's way or a male's way.
Yeah.
Again, like, everyone's so quick to be negative, especially online.
True.
They don't expect it to come back at them.
I do want to jump into, and I know we're up against it a little bit, but there was that Jalen Hurts that when he was walking to the tunnel at the end of that Washington-Philadelphia game, and those fans are leaning on the railing, and they all went down and fell down to the ground where he was. First of all, I was amazed that nobody got hurt. Secondly, now Eagles fans apparently none too happy with what happened there and the aftermath.
Yeah, so this took place at Washington, and obviously Jalen Hurts walking through the tunnel, fans leaning over, as I typically you see fans leaning over into a tunnel when players are walking by to try to get that handshake or whatever. Maybe they give a glove or an armband, whatever. And all these Eagles fans come tumbling down. I think it was a 6-foot drop. No one critically injured, but obviously some people weren't feeling fantastic. They had just fallen 6 feet and probably landed very awkwardly. These Eagles fans, Washington released a statement saying, medical care was provided and people were asked if they were okay. And Eagles fans were like, that is an absolute lie. That never happened. The only person who asked if we were okay was Jalen before security, hurried him off to get him back to the locker room. It was Eagles fans making sure other Eagles fans were okay, and that no one from a Washington staff perspective took any time to make sure that they were okay. If anything, it was just them saying, hey, you need to get out of the way. You're in the tunnel. Come on.
Well, and the thing you said at the outset as well, Shannon, fans lean over those railings all the time by the tunnel. Yeah. I mean, Washington and whoever designed and was responsible for that railing, somebody dropped the ball there in a big way that railing can collapse like that. That's not good. And I got a feeling, even though nobody's saying they were hurt right away, I got a feeling lawsuits are still coming.
Oh, for sure. And we know that stadium has been falling apart for some time now, and that's been part of the conversation in Washington. And you know what? I think it's convenient that today they said, hey, by the way, 2/22, we're going to release some big news. Let's focus on that, folks. Let's get that on our calendars.
Change the narrative. Always a good idea when things aren't going well. Well, Shannon, Salty Sweeney, welcome back. Great to have you back.
Thanks, Jeff. Feels
good to be here.
Do it.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. Dave Ayler, welcome, sir. As always, you were spectacular.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and Ben Roethlisberger and your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Going to make the playoffs if it kills us.
Imagine that. Same as it ever was. Pittsburgh doing well. We will do this again tomorrow. Spurs game tonight at Toronto, so we'll talk Spurs. Speaking of Spurs, Bill Schoening, the voice of the Spurs, going to join us tomorrow as well. For Shannon, Salty Sweeney, and Dave Ayler, I'm Chris. Have yourself a great Taco Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Woo! All right, adios. We will see you tomorrow.